Here's my review of Swamp Thing. First things first, I actually reviewed this show like about a year ago, but my whole TikTok account got deleted, so that's a whole other story. But now that I have the better editing tools, I'm going to do an actual full review. But yeah, this show is just great. I loved it. Just the horror vibe is great. The characters are deep. And I would say some of my only complaints is there wasn't enough episodes. This show unfortunately got canceled, but for what we got, it was great. But basically, follow Abby Arcane, who returns to her hometown of Louisiana to investigate a deadly virus. And so it's kind of like a main mystery, but along with the horror elements of the Swamp Thing. Like, she meets this guy named Alec Holland, and he's also investigating this virus and what's making people sick, but eventually he is murdered and then revived as. So, yeah, he's murdered and he is taken in by the swamp because he has all these deadly chemicals with him, and he turns into the Swamp Thing, and that whole process is just amazing. And throughout the show, like, like, they're trying to get or reverse it. They're trying to get Alec back, and it's like a classic kind of monster story where like it's not a monster and that's how they see him. It's like been done a million times, but still very well done here. And another standout here is Susie. She's like one of the first people to get sick, and for only being like 10, 12 years old, she's phenomenal in this show. And like she's kind of almost, I guess, the kickoff of this. And I mean, Abby's adoptive parents are basically they are basically her adopted parents kind of, but they hate her because she killed their daughters, and although it was an accident, like they killed Shauna. She killed Shauna, and it was completely an accident. Like obviously they hate her for it. Still, it was like manslaughter. But she pushed her off, but she actually survived. And then she was like taken by the swamp, which I don't really think was very well explained. Like where the chemicals weren't in there. Like what actually took her? There was no Swamp Thing at this time. That's what I don't understand. And like I said, for horror, this show is great. Like at the very first episode, they're doing an autopsy on one of the people who died in the swamp, and then it just comes alive and it's just like absolutely horrifying with all the vines coming out. It's just disgusting. It's crazy, and it's great. And there are many scenes like that where Swamp Thing just rips apart like this one guy to like a million pieces. It's disgusting, but it's crazy. It's cool. So yeah, like I said, this is like mainly horror show, but there are some really great dramatic moments between all these characters. That's what makes this show so good. Like yeah, that previous scene happened because Susie was being chased after this crazy guy into the swamp because she has like a kind of a connection with him because she was one of the first people to get this virus. So she kind of has a connection with him and they can kind of understand each other, and she can almost understand what Alec is thinking. And she's actually the one who reveals that it is Alec. Yeah, like she reveals to Abby that Alec was the name of Swamp Thing who saved her basically. And like I said, another great horrifying scene is when Abby goes to like check on Susie, and then Shauna, like from beyond the grave, due to Susie's visions from the connection with the swamp, she's able to see her undead friend, and that scene is just horrifying and it's great. It is very, very scary, and it's kind of awesome. One thing that I just really just did not care for in this show is this whole Blue Devil subplot. Like, I'm sure it was supposed to get continued in season 2, which obviously got canceled, so it's not really their fault. But even in this season, it doesn't really feel natural in it. Like they're clearly setting up like this villain of this guy who's like an actor. Then he got an opportunity to play this character. Then it got infused with the character through like this magic, and it just never really felt like it was going anywhere. Like even if they were intending it, like it still ends on a note. Like the whole show ends on a note where like they don't even really tease it again. Like it was supposed to happen, but unfortunately it didn't. So yeah, you get some great moments with all the characters. Like the one episode where he's not kind of not Swamp Thing for like a day for because of like some like random like fumes or whatever. And then you get this crazy Nicolas Cage looking guy who's, I mean, all he's trying to do is save his wife, but he's still kind of a psycho. Like he performs like an autopsy on Swamp Thing. He's crazy, but he's so over the top. Like I just couldn't help thinking he reminds me so much of Nicolas Cage, and it was great. Maybe I'm biased towards that. But yeah, he's doing these terrible things, but he's just trying to save his wife. And for the main reveal of this show, you find out that Alec was dead the whole time. He wasn't infused to become the Swamp Thing. It's just the plant matter thought that he was Alec, which just makes it even more tragic. Like, you have this character who thinks that he's something, and then he finds out he's not. So yeah, you get all the great emotion, and you get the amazing horror. And that was probably my favorite part of the show, all the horror, but it's really the emotion at the core of the show that makes it so good. But yeah, overall, I really enjoyed the show. I would highly recommend it if you haven't already. And yeah, it's just a really great horror show.